doing this.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, we are now
call me
live.
GM instead of Grandmaster.
All right. So let's kick this off. This is a suspense video, and this is our show Legends, and we are here with another legend, Charlaine Harris, that we are talking to do her career interview, something that we are very excited to be able to do. We had Jeffrey Deaver on. We have a lot of other authors coming up. But Charlaine, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's strange you should mention Jeffrey Deaver, since he and I both got named Grandmaster last week.
Yeah, from MWA.
Jeff's what a great guy he is, and what a good speaker, an excellent speaker.
Yeah, he is one of the best. So let's jump in here. We're going to go all the way back to the early 1980s.
Let me try to remember that time.
We're going to go back 40 years.
You might not want to.
Yeah. And so so your first book came out in 1981, and it was Sweet and Deadly. And then you had 3 years later, you had Secret Rage 1984. But let's go just a little bit before Sweet and Deadly. What prompted you to write? And was Sweet and Deadly the first thing you wrote, or was that just the first thing that got published?
Okay, that's a compound question. I always wanted to write, and I always wrote stuff, little things in my spare time. But when I got married the second time to my current husband of 42 years, he offered me the opportunity to stay home and write full time, since I admitted to him that was what I'd always wanted to do. So what a wedding present that was.
Nice.
So I did, and I wrote, to make a, long story short, I wrote Sweet and Deadly. Through a connection, I submitted it to Houghton Mifflin, and they took it.
So that was technically the first thing you wrote and got published.
Yes.
Wow.
The first book I wrote.
Because some people have those first books in a drawer somewhere, and they're like, we can't let them out.
Right.
The evil will return.
What prompted you to want to write in the first place?
Oh, I just can't imagine wanting to do anything else. I was such a voracious reader as a child. That was the best present my parents gave me as parents. They always read in front of me. They always showed me the value of books to them. They were both great readers, and they got me books. I went to the library. So did my brother. We were always a house full of books. In fact, my father had a different book in every room. I'm more linear than that. But growing up, knowing the value of books and knowing what it meant to me to be able to travel that way. I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, the poorest county in the United States. And it meant a lot to me to be able to see something else, to go somewhere else, to experience people who lived in very different ways. And I couldn't imagine being lucky enough to be the kind of person who got to write things down, and share them with the world.
Be a storyteller.
Yeah. I loved books growing up too, and I'm a voracious reader, and I became a librarian because I thought, well, I want to share my love of reading to everyone else. And then it was years later, I went, wait a minute, I could actually be doing this myself.
Librarian was my fallback position.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I have to ask, what's your dog's name?
Well, this one is Colt. If you see another one who looks more like a corgi, that's Abigail. They're both adopted rescues.
That's wonderful.
It's nice to have them on. It's nice to have Colt on. We'll see if Abigail decides to jump around.
If you hear a thud, that's I've got the dog door right next to my desk.
Yeah.
So you can hear her come in and out.
Oh, awesome.
Now, of course, the one thing that I'm just gonna mention this, but a lot of people, of course, know you for Sookie Stackhouse and the True Blood and the phenomenon that HBO that show was. But before that, And Jeff and I, of course, I mean, my favorite series that you have is the Aurora Teagarden series, and the stories that are on the Hallmark Mystery Channel with Cameron. What's her last name?
Candace Cameron Bure.
Candace Cameron Bure. That's right. Cameron is her last name. That's right. So you kind of started that series with the book Real Murders, and it became a fabulous, I mean, it was a great cozy series. It was a wonderful kind of mystery series. So let's start getting into a little bit of Aurora Teagarden, and let's get into the books of the creation of her, and what was your thought process when wanting to write a mystery series.
Well, the first two books were mysteries, and that was what I read primarily growing up. So but I also read science fiction too. But mysteries were what I felt like I could write. I felt like I knew the structure well enough to do that. And when I started the Aurora Teagarden books, I was hoping they would ask me. I was hoping I would be asked to write a series. Series were a coming trend right then, which was like when dinosaurs were weird. But anyway. I wanted to write a series, and I could do a series about librarians because my mom was a librarian, and I felt like I could be more realistic. Though, as it turns out, she doesn't really do a lot of librarianing in the books. She's too busy, hunting down killers, which is what every librarian does in her off time. But anyway, I love being in libraries, and I love the books surrounding. And I started out with the idea that she would belong to Real Murders, a club that investigates unsolved murder cases. And I really enjoyed that a lot. I didn't go back to it often enough in the books, but I did give her a very interesting social life. So that was fun too.
Well, I'm a huge Hallmark junkie. I watch all the movies.
And thank you.
Love them. I love them.
Love them. It's my favorite of all the films that they do. And and I have to say, they're going to be airing the 16th one in the film series in June.
Yeah.
So talk about how this came to be. How did Hallmark get them? And now that they've sort of eclipsed the books, are you happy with the arc that she's doing?
In the broadest sense, the arc that the writers of the TV show are doing doesn't make any difference to me.
Okay.
To me, the interest in the TV shows is the fact that they show at the beginning, I have a screen where it says from the books by Charlaine Harris. That's my benefit. That hopefully induces people to go back and buy the books.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference it makes to me. They could have her an astronaut, and it wouldn't make any difference to me as long as it said from the books by Charlaine Harris at the beginning.
Aurora in space. That might be you never know. Someone dies on the International Space Station. Maybe she visits. Hey, Elon Musk is involved. This could work.
It could be a winner. Of course, I do watch them. They usually send them to me ahead of time. Not exactly for my commentary. Not because they really want to know what I think, because that doesn't really make any difference. But because it's a courtesy to me that I see them ahead of time, and I really do enjoy them. They've gone way past any of the situations in the books, so I never know what's going to happen either. So it's entertaining to me to watch.
That's cool. Well, how did they start?
Well, their people talk to my people. That's really pretty much how anything starts. Well, my agent, I'm not sure. I had my agents in Hollywood then. Now I'm with APA out there. So any approaches about books to screen come through APA now. Before, they would just talk directly to my book agent, who's Joshua Bilmus at Jabberwocky. And Joshua would call me and say, well, are you at all interested? And I'm going, heck yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah.
And we would work something out, or a lot of times it falls through. I had an option on the Aurora books previously that fell through, but
I was just going to ask if that was the first.
no,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't. But it was the one that ultimately got made.
Yeah.
And the Hallmark people are so pleasant to deal with. They're really just it's a very different experience than I've had with other companies. They're just very easy to deal with. The producer is always telling me what's going on, and it's really a warmer relationship than I've had at other times.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Now, Aurora, so you've been writing the series and it started in 1990. Your last book came out in 2017. So there's always been like a little bit of, breaks kind of in between. Is there a reason for that? Was that because kind of Sookie took over at some kind of a point? Because it looks like 2003 to 2016 was like the largest gap in between books. Did you miss her? What was the kind of like the reasoning for kind of coming back after 13 years and then saying, let's get back and jump into Aurora again?
Well, as you say, I was busy. In that interim, I wrote the Sookie books and the Harper Connelly books too.
Correct.
And so and the Aurora books were fun to write. I enjoyed them, and they got nominated for an award or two, but they were not big money makers when they first came out. So of course, I wanted to write what was making the money, because that was, Sookie was so
eat.
fun to write. It was so different. But then when the movies were so popular, they said, "What would you be interested in writing anymore?" And I thought, I did kind of leave her in a place where I could say more about her life. But when she got pregnant and had the baby, I wrote one with her with the baby, and then I thought, I just am not going to write anymore because it's irresponsible of a woman with an infant to go around solving murders. I'm sorry, it just is. That's being a bad mom. So I just thought, no, I'm not going to do that to her. She wouldn't like it.
Okay.
Let's talk about your Shakespeare Lilly Bard series, because you did 5 of those.
Yeah.
How did those come about?
I wanted to write something darker. I enjoyed writing Aurora very much, but at that time in the mystery world, there was a lot of disdain for cozy writers.
Oh.
And of course, that made me angry because I thought I was a good writer no matter what I was writing. And I wanted to write something darker to just kind of say, see, I can be dark too.
Right.
And it turned out I could. And I enjoyed writing the Lilly books in a more deeply satisfying way. I felt like I was saying something that was valuable to say. It was the first time it really occurred to me I had something I truly wanted to say. So I did, and I'm really proud of those books.
Yeah. Now you said something that was interesting. I'd like to go back on it. Why would, and I wasn't a cozy author, and so I don't know, but what was the disdain that you felt in the cozy world? What was going on at that time? Were they just not buying them? Were they just?
Oh yeah, they were. They sold really well.
Yeah.
It was hard-boiled people who, not all of them, but I've got to say it was mostly men who had the attitude of, why don't you take your fluffy kitten and go home?
Oh.
It was, and it wasn't cleverly disguised or anything. It was very overt. I like to think that wouldn't happen now.
So they wanted just more of darker tones, is what publishers were looking for, or?
They just didn't think that these are other writers. They just didn't think that people who wrote traditional mysteries were really very good writers.
Ugh.
It was like the position you fell back to if you couldn't write hard-boiled.
Right.
That seemed to be the way they felt about it. And I thought, yeah, because a detective who gets up out of his bed at the hospital with a concussion and goes to finish the job with no pay because he's just dedicated to finishing the John, that's realistic, right?
Yeah, exactly. But so real quick about Aurora, I just want to go back one time. Is there, when people are jumping into the series now and maybe they're just finding out about the movies and they're like, wow, I had no idea that this was a book series. And then they come maybe to a book signing and they ask you about it. Do you tell them to kind of say, hey, this is a good book to kind of start with? Or do you just say you can just kind of read the back and jump right in wherever you want to go? How do you answer that question to your fans when they ask you about the series?
It's always better to start at the beginning.
Okay.
I think there are series in which the character never changes,
Mhm.
and you could literally jump in anywhere, and that character's not going to change from the first book to the 20th book. But that's not, my characters do change, and I think it's always more interesting to follow the genesis of a character. It just makes the character more interesting to me.
Gotcha.
Well, let's talk about Sookie because, myself being a former librarian, I always hung out with waitresses who were psychic and dealt with vampires. So,
Of course you can. Every librarian does.
Well, he's got more stories than that being a librarian. Though. That's the tamest one he's got.
how did this whole world and universe pop
Yeah,
up in your
much
mind?
different path.
Yeah, completely different.
Yeah, well, I like to think it keeps me more entertained if I write very different things. Otherwise, my brain starts to feel a little stagnant.
Okay.
I think
Mhm.
I really have to keep things moving and back and forth to keep my brain happy and working. Though some would probably disagree with that. But Sookie came from, I usually start with a character and then I imagine the world that would have to be to let that character have her being. What would the world have to be like to where she could operate in it? She could make a living. She could do all these things. So gradually, I thought about a waitress. She wasn't a waitress at first, but I thought, what job could she have where she could easily meet lots of people uh, professionally, and yet go home to a quiet life? And that one occurred to me.
It's a good one.
And
Yeah.
so I talked to a lot of waitresses also, so I could at least get some semblance of reality on that. I've never had to. That's never been my job of choice, but I did talk to a lot of people who had made their living that way. And so she gradually just evolved, and I wanted her to have some kind of disability to where she couldn't date regular human guys, because I wanted her to have to date a vampire. So I took all those factors and they kind of let them stew in my head for a while. And then Sookie kind of evolved out of that. And then her world evolved out of who she is. And that's pretty much the way I write: first the character, then the world.
Okay. Did it take you some time? I mean, how long did she percolate in your head before you finally put her to pen to paper?
A while, uh, a few months anyway.
Okay.
And I came to a place where I had some free time, so I wrote Dead Until Dark. And it took my agent 2 years to find someone who would publish it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I mean, I've interviewed Anne Rice, and she told me that she almost quit writing because Interview with a Vampire, she didn't think it was selling. And then about a year and a half after the book came out, she got words from her publisher like, oh my gosh, this book is a huge underground hit and it's going to explode. And she was like, what? And she like had no idea. Was that kind of the same way for Sookie? Like when when book one came out, was it an automatic hit, or was it something that was a slow percolate and then it kind of hit?
Well, it was funny. After 2 years, we had sold it to John Morgan at Penguin, and he was a junior editor then, and he's gone on to follow many career paths since then. But he really believed in it, and it did very well out of the gate, pretty much. It was really a surprise to everyone but me. I really believed in that book, and I thought, if anything accelerates my career, this will be the book, which was a minority viewpoint among everyone I knew professionally. But it worked. I mean, the book, people were going, and mostly because of the beautiful first cover I had from Lisa DeSimone, because it was such a weird cover, and it took off really well. And then they came back and they said, "Well, we'd like some more books." And I was going, "Okay, now's when the money starts to go up," and it did.
Now the money goes up.
Now the money goes
You want
up.
more Sookie? You write a bigger check.
I will qualify for welfare.
Exactly.
Well, how did the series come into being? HBO, you had a fantastic cast. You had Alan Ball behind it. How did all that come about?
Alan Ball. He picked up a copy of Dead Until Dark at a Barnes and Noble while he was waiting to go to a dentist appointment.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Wow. See, that's that's just amazing.
I
that
love
he's
it.
waiting for a dentist appointment, goes into a Barnes and Noble and just happens to pick it up and is like, I'm going to do a TV show on this freaking series.
He said he thought he'd read a chapter before bed, and then he stayed up and read 7. So he had never adapted. I don't believe he'd ever adapted anything before. Mm-hmm. So it was a new process for him, and of course a very new one for me too, because I'd never had anything that actually made it to the screen. Right. So it was a pretty exciting time being on the set, and I did the red carpet once, and it was crazy, really crazy. It was fun too, but it was also stressful.
Stressful as in how?
Well, the expectations immediately went up.
Okay. And
people would meet me and they would say things like, "But you seem so nice." Am I not nice because I write
right.
with vampires?
You're like, "I'm nice and real. This is my alter ego. That's why I do this."
I am a nice person, I hope. I mean, I try, but they expected, I don't know what they expected, but not me. They say, "But you look just like my aunt." And I thought, okay, I'd probably like her then.
Now,
wow.
Now, at what point, though, because the show kind of veers a little off from the books, but it didn't really start out that way, from what I understand, in like season 1. Now, my wife had watched the whole season. I kind of jumped in and out. I didn't really catch the whole thing. But at what point did it just start to like veer away? And then it was almost like a Game of Thrones situation that you had at first, where it was like the books were one thing, but the show was something different.
And that was hard to explain to people. They would say things like, "How can you let them do that to
exactly.
books?" And I'm going, "There's no let."
Yeah.
There is no let. When you sign, they have the right to your characters. Mm-hmm. And they will dispose those characters as they see fit, because they're writing a different story. Mm-hmm. They have a different goal. They have a different narrative. The books are all first person. A TV show can't be filmed that way, with one person in every scene. It has to be more of an ensemble. So naturally, there were things they had to do and wanted to do and should have done, because they're not me. They are other writers who feel like they have just as much talent, and they know where they want it to go. So it was really hard to explain to people who expected this to be, and I didn't know what to expect either.
Right.
Who expected this to be like a transcription of the books. And I had to say, no, it can't be that way. And it shouldn't be that way, because I wrote the books and other people are writing these scripts. but it was a confusing time in terms of viewer expectations and reader expectations.
Gotcha.
I was going to say you should tell people that they tied you up in your kitchen and demanded you until you relented.
We want Lafayette to live. Okay.
I want to talk to you about genre for a second because beginning writers especially have this problem when they write something. They're told, well, what genre box does it fit in? And you are
You're
successful in
around,
more,
yeah.
and
Multi-genre.
so could you talk a bit about genre?
I think there's a lot more cross genre now than there was back when I started doing it. And let me point out again that it took 2 years to sell Sookie because no one knew what to do with it. They would say, we don't know where to put it in the store. And I said, on the end cap. That's where it belongs.
On the end cap.
Everyone can see it.
I like that. Yeah.
It was a confusing book to market, but ultimately it was what people were waiting for, to my great good fortune. And it was certainly the breakthrough book I was waiting for because my career was just kind of dribbling and drabbling along. And I was happy with it, but I kept thinking, am I ever going to find the breakout book? The book that crosses me over into a different wage bracket. And it's not really so much the money, though money's always nice, but it's nice to get the recognition. And eventually I was able to do that. But I just had the right book at the right time with the right publisher. They were publishing Laurel K. Hamilton too.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it was more of a natural match for them than it was any other publisher.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So when you were, was it a challenge though when you had to write Sookie and the series was going on HBO and they kind of were different, and you have your fans, your readers, you had the fans of the show, maybe some of the fans of the show were not readers and some of the readers did not watch the show, vice versa. But was there a challenge of you having to write the books while the show was going on did you ever cross in your mind like, God, should I do more of what the show's doing or should I just stick with this lane? How was that conversation happening in your head?
Luckily for me, I was already 5 books into the series by the time the TV show came on the air because they had started filming and then the writer's strike in Hollywood happened and everything stopped for a year. Well, that time I kept on writing Sookie, the way I had been, and it really kind of established her and me as the producers of the production company for the books. And then when Alan and his team changed quite a few things, that was okay because I knew where I was going by that time, and I didn't have to hesitate and try to outthink them because I had my own path, and I knew how the series would end, but I was still having a good time getting there.
Okay, gotcha.
Let's talk about ending because I know your fans want you to keep writing the books, and as they wanted the series to keep going as well. I know that you did something called After Dead, What Came Next, and then you also did a tribute with other authors. Could you talk a bit about, I saw your look when I asked you about the ending. Could you talk a bit about that?
When the Sookie series ended, that was probably one of the worst times in my life. People were sending me hate mail, death threats. One woman said, I curse your children.
Wow. You told me this in BoucherCon when we met.
It's incredible. To me that anybody would threaten my children
over a book series from a fictional character.
Wow.
That you created in your head. That's the thing. it's almost like they felt that they had ownership over a character that you created.
Exactly. They said I wrote the ending wrong. And I'm going, excuse me. This is my series. I created these characters. They live only in my head.
Right.
I do not have them in my basement. You know.
Yeah.
All that we know of.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh,
Maybe that's where Colt went.
It infuriated me, and it saddened me, and it scared me.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get over that, but eventually I realized that these were my characters. I originated them, and I ended the series the way I'd always planned on it. I did not mislead anyone. I did everything but draw blinking arrows towards the ending when I could see how it was going, because I thought people aren't gonna get this. They're not gonna get this. So I started trying to be even clearer about where I was going, and still there were people who believed that I deliberately deceived them and were really mean. I was really mean to Eric.
You know, and I tell people, because I'm a big Star Wars fan, and people complain about, oh, well, Star Wars, you can't do that. You know, Luke wouldn't do this, or this wouldn't happen. I'm like, if you know what the ending's already going to be, isn't that boring? Like, if it's going to end the way that you thought it was going to end, isn't that boring? There's no surprise. There's no suspense. You're just rushing to get to the ending that, you know, you want this person married to this person, or this person married to this person. That's boring to me. And they should trust you as an author, that you created something that they love so much that you're going to treat her and the characters in the right way that you see fit. That's the mindset that I don't understand from fans, thinking that they own you. Even sports fans thinking that they own this, you know, why are you doing what you're doing? I don't get that mentality. And I'm sorry that happened to you. And hopefully all that has kind of gone away now that it's been like 7 or 8 years past, that all that is kind of whooshed away.
Every now and then I get an apology.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
They woke up.
I'm sorry I said those things to you, because I realize now that series was yours to end, and I'm going, well, thank you very much. But it is kind of gratifying that some people realize that they really stepped over quite a few lines in their reaction. I don't know. I got over it. I'm tougher than I thought I was, and I said, well, when people say, and what do you think? Are you thinking about your fans when you write? And I'm going, no, I'm writing the book. How can I predict?
Right.
I mean, I have to write the book that seems right to me, and because I'm the god of that book.
Yeah.
And I'll dispose of it as I see fit, and I have to hope that people will see that will see the sense in the way I picked to end it, or will at least not feel like it's the end of their world.
Right. I think if you're trying to write to make fans happy, you should be a politician, not an author.
Yeah.
The story's the story. It is what it is.
It's like my books. I love it when they buy my books.
Yeah.
But I'm the ultimate judge of what goes into it.
Accepted, or Aurora Teagarden dies in the next book.
Exactly. So real quick, Jeff, for you, I have a question. Is there any plans to maybe bring Sookie back in a different format, like a full-length motion picture at some point? Has that ever been talked about? Because sometimes when these series go away, somebody is like, oh, you know, and then they want to kind of bring it out and rehash. Is there any talk at all with bringing Sookie back to the screen?
HBO is rebooting the series.
Aha, there it is.
Not that they told me.
Oh, so they still own that character then for a length of time.
They do.
Okay.
And they say they're going to reboot it. I found out from Variety.
Wow.
I'm going, ooh. And not even because I take Variety, but a friend of mine does. And she said, I guess you knew about this. And I'm going, oh, I guess I didn't.
Oh.
But there again, it really doesn't have anything to do with me. They're quite right.
True.
They've still got the right to the characters. And as I understand it, Alan doesn't really have a lot to do with it either, though I think he's going to be listed as a producer. But they're going to start again. They're going to scrub the slate and start with all new characters.
Oh.
So not even new characters of mine that they didn't use, but new characters they're inventing.
New actors and actresses too, huh?
Yes.
Totally clean slate, like the first one never happened.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean,
More book sales for Sookie, baby.
That's what I'm hoping. We'll still have to say from the books by Charlaine Harris.
That's right. They still got to say it.
Yeah. So I'm really kind of looking forward to what happens with that.
Very nice. Cool.
And I've got a contract. The Harper books are in development with a Canadian film company, and Gunnie Rose is in development with also. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I was going to say is there seems to be a trend with taking shows and films that were really popular and bringing them back in some form. And 9 times out of 10, they shouldn't have bothered. I hope that this is the 10th one.
I hope so too. I hope, I really wanted Midnight Texas to last. I thought it was really good. And it lasted 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed in that. Because I had a great time on the set, loved all the actors, thought the scripts were wonderful, the special effects were really good, and I was very disappointed when it didn't catch on the way I hoped it would.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Midnight Texas. We'll jump ahead a little bit because it looks to me like you visioned it as a trilogy anyway. So I was hoping there was going to be at least 3 seasons.
Well, they compact it. They had elements of all 3 books in the first season because I guess they didn't know if they'd get another season or not. So the second season was interesting, but really new to me. I mean, almost all the material was new. I would have liked to have written some more Midnight Texas books, but the fact is they didn't sell super great compared to the Sookie books when they came out, and readers vote with their checkbook.
Yeah.
Whether a series continues or ends really depends on how well they sell. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I thought they were great.
I enjoyed writing them. It was a whole different thing for me. It
That was
wasn't in
great.
the first person. It was an ensemble cast, and I moved from point of view to point of view, and it was really a learning thing for me.
So to kind of put Sookie to bed a little bit on this one, now that the show is going to be rebooted, is the series maybe going to be rebooted?
Not.
What if it's extremely popular and it's like Game of Thrones popular? I mean, the pressure is going to be so immense to bring her back.
I had always thought, and I've often heard this from readers, that they would like to have another book with the war tiger in it, Quinn. He was a very popular character, and I really loved writing him. He's like my Mr. Clean fantasy. And I thought, I maybe wouldn't mind writing another book with Quinn as the main character. So, it's faintly possible it could happen. For years, I said, I will never, ever, ever go back there.
So you're saying there's a chance.
So bad, but never, ever, ever, it turns out is a relative term.
Yeah. It's never, ever today. Tomorrow, there's a chance.
There's a chance, a slim chance.
That's a good thing. But you know what? That's something fans can be like, going like that. They're really hoping. So that'd be good. But you got to feel it. And it's got to be the right story for you. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So,
yeah. I have to feel good about it.
And then you can put in other demands like I need brown M&Ms, I need ABBA to get back together. It's just you can do all that.
Right.
You mentioned Harper. Let's talk about the series because you did 4 of them, and there also were graphic novels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During
cool.
Sookie's time, you wrote this during Sookie's time, so you had double duty going on at that time.
But I didn't write the graphic novels, and
right.
People often believe I did, and so when they bring them to me to sign, I'm going, I didn't write these, so I'm feeling a little weird about signing it. and they just want me to go in and sign it. Now, what I did with Christopher Golden. I did write a graphic novel series called Cemetery Girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I really had a good time doing that. Chris and I worked together really well. We've been friends for a long time, and I enjoyed that. There again, a big learning curve for me.
Yeah, graphic novels dialogue is like this big.
Yeah, completely different from a book,
Yeah.
a regular novel, at least to me. I had a hard time, but finally Chris got it through my skull what I had to do to write it, and we just enjoyed the whole process so much.
Nice.
Well, I have to ask, since we're talking about writing other um, formats, you wrote video games. Is that correct?
No,
Oh, but you had two come out, and I thought one of them you did write.
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
One came out, and then one has been on the back burner for years.
Really?
Years. And I've met the people; they're delightful people, but they cannot seem to finish it.
Oh.
So I don't know. It's based on the Lilly books,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
and they got a lot of it done, and then I don't know. I never hear from them, and it's been a long time. So I'm not feeling too optimistic about that.
Oh, shoot,
What
I'm sorry.
format was it supposed to be in? Like a PC game? Was it going to be mobile? Was it?
I'm
No.
not very good with with technical terms, but it was like a multiple choice. You could take the solving the mystery in different ways.
Oh,
It-
like
it
old
was-
Choose Your Own Adventures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and I looked at a lot of the graphics from it. I enjoyed them,
Mhm.
but it just doesn't seem to ever materialize. So,
Very interesting.
yeah.
So now, are there any plans to maybe revisit Harper in the future after the 4 books that you had written about them?
I wouldn't mind writing another Harper. Uh, I don't know if my publisher really wants any, but I've often thought about writing another Harper seriously,
Mhm.
TV deal or no TV deal. I really enjoyed the character. I really enjoyed her weird relationship with her brother, and I liked writing about Harper. She had some unique challenges.
Very nice.
Well, let's talk about Gunnie Rose, since I know that's the most recent series you're working on. You got a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
I love alternate history. And so let's talk a bit about how you sort of blend magic into the narrative, and how did Gunnie Rose come about?
There again, I started out with the character in the world that had to be built around her, was constructed around what she wanted to do, which was kill a lot of people. And she had to not get arrested every time. So it had to be a different America. And I decided when America splintered, and I got that all worked out in my head, and the world gradually presented itself to me. And the first time I wrote about her was for a short story in an anthology that Sean Speakman put out.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved writing that story so much. She was such a genuine character. I just thought, oh, this just feels cleansing writing her. So after I finished the story, I thought, I wouldn't mind writing a book about her.
Why not?
And then just at that time, Penguin let me go, and my agent met with an editor at Saga Press, Joe Monte, and Joe said, "Is Charlaine writing anything new? Because if she's at liberty, I would love to do a book with her." And I'm going, "I'm so at liberty." I would just love to do a book with you. And really, we get along great. I've written 3 books in the series, and I'm working on the 4th. I got a contract for the 4th and 5th. So.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, that's always encouraging.
Now, the 3rd book is out this year, correct?
Yes, it came out in February.
February. Okay, yeah. So do you have a title for book 4 yet?
No, it's driving me crazy.
What?
It's about her little sister, Felicia, her half sister.
Okay.
But the title, The Little Sister, is kind of already taken.
Right.
So I can't use that. And I've been, every day when I don't have anything else to do in my head, I worry about the title of that book. Because it really helps me if I've got the title.
So the series goes, so it was an easy death, and then you had a longer fall, and now so the Russian Cage is the latest one.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your writing style. Do you write kind of every series, even though they're different characters? Do you still have the same kind of writing style throughout, or do you change your writing style a little bit, or how you write, and depending on the genre that you are getting into? Like, is Aurora written the same way as Gunnie Rose?
No, I don't think so.
Hey, hi, Colt.
Maybe someone with a computer app to analyze my word choices would say different. But to me, the word choices and to some extent, the action are determined by the character of my protagonist.
Interesting.
I was gonna say, you do a lot of short stories. To me, you're sort of like, I don't want to say the anthology queen, but you're in a lot of them, and they're all great. How do you think in terms of taking your big world building and putting it into such a compact story? To me, that's difficult.
It's so hard. Short stories are so hard to write, and that's why I do it. Because it really makes me focus. It makes me change my vocabulary. It makes me change my style. I disagree with you. I don't think I'm a very good short story writer.
No, you are.
Oh, please.
Astronomically good short story writers. But the one I wrote for, do you remember Bill Kreider, the Western? He wrote mysteries set in the West with Sheriff Dan Rhodes, and he was a friend of mine. I loved him dearly, and when he passed away, they did a tribute anthology called Bullets and Other Hurtful Things. And my short story in there is really my favorite short story I've ever written.
Oh,
nice.
It's called Aunt Tally. And I don't know, the first draft was a catastrophe. But the second one, I thought, okay, things have to happen, as you pointed out earlier, things have to happen that you don't expect.
Right.
So I did think of some things I didn't expect, and it made the story so much richer. I'm just every time I'm feeling really bad about myself, I read that story and I think I did okay on that one. Some others not so much, but I did okay on that one.
I was gonna say, I know Sean Speakman. He's a good friend of mine, and he runs something called the Signed Page, and I've been over to his house once where the author was actually signing, and you couldn't walk into his place because there were so many books. It was just wonderful to be surrounded by so many books. Let's go back to Gunnie Rose a second. Because you've had success in terms of having your work made into TV film, and honestly, the one that didn't do as well is because, honestly, in my opinion, it was on network TV. It was not a network television show. Hello, people. Do you see any hope for Gunnie to go on like HBO or cable network?
You said she was optioned.
She was optioned, but I don't know what network or streaming service the producer is aiming for. I really think Gunnie would do better off network.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are essentially about a woman who shoots a lot of people.
Yeah. I think, and any of the streaming services off network can kind of go that way, and it's great. And I think they've been really pushing the boundaries on series and TV, and I think that would be the place that you have to go.
Agreed.
Those have to go there. Yeah. I mean, it's not vanilla. Network might be good for some things, but I think streaming is where you get the real good crux of the stories now.
I watch television now, and And now I'm not ashamed to say it. It used to be maybe 20 years ago. I would say, I watch television sometimes, but now it's easy to say I watch television and think yes because the writing is really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I, so when you kind of look back, over your career and for where you started out, all the way back in 1981 and now coming up today, is there one thing, is there maybe like a book or something that you wish that you maybe go back and change a little bit, or maybe add something to, or finish something off? Is there something maybe that you wanted to, kind of looking over your career that you'd like to maybe go back and fix or change, or everything kind of went the way that you wanted to in the books?
I'm not big on looking back. I can't change
Okay.
anything. I have to just concentrate on doing the best I can going forward. And that's really the way I think. No matter what mistakes I made in my life and in my career, they're done. I want to go forward and do better all the time.
Cool.
John's going to know my next question because when we do our podcast together,
Here it comes.
Here it comes. Here it comes. The series versus standalone argument. Why do you prefer writing series as opposed to writing a standalone novel and then writing another standalone novel?
I don't see why there's any argument about it. People write what they're called on to write. There's no better way to do it. I like writing series because I get to develop characters all the way through. I get to revisit people I've missed, and I enjoy that. Writing standalones is reinventing the wheel every time, and there are some writers who do excellently at that. They enjoy it. I like to take a world and develop it a little bit and meet the people and get to know them a little better because that's just the way I like to write. So I don't think there's a versus in there, really.
And the reason why I do the more of the standalones to the series, I'm not a fan of series that have no foreseeable ending, and it's like it feels like you're just getting the same book over and over, where you read the back of the book and it's kind of like, now this is the most diabolical villain they've ever faced because that's what you said the last time, and so it kind of seems it's like the same story. But with your series, see, there's an ending that you can kind of see that there's an ending coming and you're going to wrap things up, and I like that. I like knowing, like trilogies or Harry Potter 7 books or something. Hey, the author's taking me down this road, and it's not a road that will never end. It's actually a road that I'm going to come to a conclusion, and that's exciting to me. So yeah,
I like that too.
Yeah.
I can't write the same book over and over and make characters stay the same.
no,
To me, that's just not interesting as a career. I like to write characters that change, characters that have terrible things happen to them. And sadly, I am the person who does all those awful things. And sometimes I feel really bad about it. But sometimes I think, if I feel really bad about it, that's the thing I should do. So my career is more thinking of awful things to do to my people, but having them gain something in return too, because that's what life is, checks and balances.
yeah,
Right?
true. So as we wrap up the end here, I just got to know, is there a funny story about a book signing? Was there something funny that happened like at a book signing when someone came up to you and kind of, just kind of made you laugh, that kind of sticks in your head where you just laugh about, like right now you're laughing?
So many. So, I could never have believed how many people are willing to be weird.
Willing to be weird.
Right out front. There was a woman came to. This is slightly indelicate, I guess. A woman came to one of my signings, and she had had a few.
Oh,
She
okay.
was stoked up, and she had on all her jewelry and her makeup, and she was really like a middle class lady in her 40s, and she leaned over and she said, "I just want to know, how did you get all those lovely penises in your book?" I was going, "Oh, there's no answer. There's no possible answer to
There's
that.
no answer to that one. There's really no answer. Yeah. Huh.
Oh, I love
That's
that.
So your website, is that the best place for everyone, of course, to keep up all their information about you and the most current information you keep on there? And what social media platform do you like to use the most?
I use Facebook a lot.
Okay.
I have a professional page on Facebook, and I visit that every day. I'm much better about that than keeping my website up, and I'm so ashamed of myself for that, because all it would take would be telling my website gal I need this on there, and she would do it. But and I have a gal who does my Instagram for me, because
Okay.
that turned out to be the thing I didn't have time to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to draw a line
Somewhere.
so you can get your writing done.
Right.
Right.
If you're on social media every day and you fall into that rabbit hole, you're not going to write, because you can fall into that rabbit hole easy.
That's true. That's true. You have to learn what you can bear and what you can't. I cannot read reviews of my work.
Oh, you do not?
No, not unless it's from a magazine that I
Okay.
trust. I don't.
So you're not on Amazon skewering the reviews to see what people are saying.
That
Makes sense.
is the way to feel like never writing again. Yeah, I gave you 1 star because that book costs more than it ought to.
Yeah. Well, there's a friend of Jeff and I's who's a writer, and what he does is he goes into the Amazon reviews, and the worst one that he finds, he takes that person's name and kills them in the next book. That's like his way of cleansing himself.
I think that is absolutely valid. That is, you go.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, just gonna kill that person off next.
But you had to read the review. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, that's soul killing. To find yourself so misunderstood.
Right.
I mean, well, she did this because of this, and I'm going, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
She just wants to make more money. Well, yeah, who doesn't? I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't mind making money when I'm trying to make a living.
Yeah.
But they attribute that as the basis for all my decisions. And I would make a lot different decisions if it were.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Charlaine, this has been absolutely fabulous. I hope you've had a wonderful time talking about your career and going kind of over everything. And of course, getting into the Gunnie Rose series, which is now forefront. Can't wait to see what they do with Sookie, and never know, maybe she comes back.
Maybe. We'll see what happens. Guys, I've had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Thank
been
you
blessed.
so much.